In my hood, you hear sirens and semis pop. Judah keep vexing Ephraim. When will the envy stop? No love for any cops. That's what got Kenny shot. Y'all drinking Henny shots. I'm investing in penny stocks. They give me props. Rapping, teaching, debating unity while Satan trying to weaken the nation. Cops in my community kill us with every opportunity. No justice or peace. The police get immunity. Look, rubber bullets and riot tools when they gear up. Asking where the love went, cause judgment is near us. And kids rather pour up a foe and sip the syrup than learn about how the black Moors ruled in Europe. We divided by economic material schisms. My people are serial victims of imperialism. I tell the truth in the booth, boy, my pen no lie. They love the Hebrew Israelites. Ask the N-O-I. Let's pray. I pray. Abba, yet how will rise. I pray for your grace and everything that you shall provide. I pray every day that you teach me how to strive to put my trust in you, because in you is where the power lies. My people are dead and punk will come out of hide. I pray every day, no excuses or alibis. I pray that every last one of these cowards die. I pray all of this in the name of Yahweh Shai. Can't feed the flesh, don't need the stress, so I fast and I rest instead. Cold sweats in the bath, trying to grasp if I sat in bed. In my dream, I had a twin. He stabbed me to death and fled. Visions of a pale horse and a dragon with 7 heads. Vagabond Babylon being watched by the Lord. Can't even stop by the store, cause on my block it's a war. Jehovah Witnesses don't even knock at my door, cause they know they false doctrine will get chopped by my sword. Yeah, I'm with the lyrical or the spiritual murder play. I see some ravenous wolves leading the herd astray. My homie's mom's a tweaker, I watch him serve a yay. I'm numb to this game and the pain. I'm an inverted. When the Messiah comes serve, we gon' witness the sun purge. He coming back to judge every idle and dumb word. My team always moving in silence, we unheard. The elite wanna converge on the elect and the 1/3. I pray, Abba, yeah, how will rise. I pray for your grace and everything that
All right, brothers, let's have fun with it.
Step up on the scene, casting at them doctors and them idols you esteem. Yeah, you might think it's a little extreme, but I'm all about my people, yeah, they need that vaccine. Oh, no actors, but we got that action. See them purple garments on with that gold accent. Yeah, you say you got the name, but your fringe is absent. Y'all going backwards like subtraction. So keep it in step. Sabbath day approaching, so you know it's time to prep. Sound the alarm, cause my people overslept. Yeah, you hear them trumpets blowing, sounding like a quartet. Oh. Yeah, this that purple rain. So the Bible you can't sleep on. When Christ return, yeah, the Lord gonna turn that heat on, and all that nonsense gonna be gone. Oh.
Let's go. Let me show you where I got the inspiration from. Give me that. You gonna go into the Bible? I'm gonna go into the Bible. You mean these niggas ain't read the Bible? I've never read the Bible. Damn. watch Prince videos.
There you go.
That's befitting.
Okay, my turn. Purple rain on me. Exponential growth, that's why you hating on me. This is IUIC, acting like you don't see. Boy, we know you frontin'. Please, see us on the corners, unlike you, we be like read. Coming out the scriptures, yeah, you know just how we teach. Teach class online 7 days of the week. Being earned everything that you wish you could be. You see it? Shafat, whole campus surfing. Y'all ain't the original school, you just refurbished version. Earthsome, open your mouth, but won't speak with no verses. We got Bibles while y'all yapping, man. Y'all captain is worthless. Earthsome, I know. But the truth is the truth. Run your damn mouth and got Deke in the booth. Having fun with your slander, cause our fruit is our food. Yeah, we worldwide with it, never mention you fools. Move. That's right. Working man coming through. We got jobs, we ain't living off our women Hebrew. That's a nigga, my dude. But you say you a Jew? Hell out of here with that debating. You negating the truth now. Ain't nobody playing leather headband, man. Yeah, we heard what you said, but it came back. Man, we the prophets of the Lord. Better understand. Put that foolishness aside and humble down, clown.
Simon is so great. Nobody else is allowed to wear that color. It would only him. So it's always a dignified royal pride. So they were mocking Christ in a garment. Purple garment on it and mocked him.
We the rulers, purple rain, excuse me, don't mean to boast. Go the Israelites and all you gonna see is purple and go from coast to coast. We in the street, filled with the Holy Ghost. All this purple up in this jar gon' make you have an overdose. We the leaders of the people, so rock 44 and 4. Don't know no other Israelites that go harder than we go. Just left a quest for 12 trials, prophesied to island folk. Next trip West Africa, we waking up the Ivory Coast, we finna die. If you don't, it's suicide. Cocoa rain, purple raining in your hood like them hustler working things. We is where united twice. Dance right, don't cut the night. We gon' gather 1/3 and watch the world birth and play. I can change this we can't with the true brother, y'all. Now you heard your church of fire. Yeah, it's true, you want some style. Why they hating on us? The prophets that it ain't a thing. Double honor to our Bishop B. Haters and the rays.
So when I read these scriptures, brothers and sisters, I saw meaning in purple. I saw meaning in that color. So as a people, we've been stripped of our royal heritage. The wicked mocked our king, our leader, our commander with purple. Well, as servants, we gonna mark this kingdom and raise up the 12 tribes of Israel. Doing it.
Can you stand up? Like what the tribes. This is not just made up. All this stuff comes out of the scriptures. And when you got a leader that cannot explain his doctrine, that's a fool. Exactly. Everything that we are about, we can explain.
Yep.
Out of the scriptures.
Purple rain, fly in the plane. Purple garment so clean, you don't see a stain. All that hating bring us fame, so we do our thing. Purple rain, we giving you haters chest pain. It's a shame how these brothers got hate in the brain. They got the spirit of Cain, so we in our own lane. Nobody saying we'll jump in front of a freight train, but they killed the prophets and these brothers will do the same thing. Dang, I ain't about to play with kids all up in our Kool-Aid, but they don't know what the flavor is. Tell them what the flavor is, great. That they hating this, I wish I could see their faces when they looking mad playing this, man. Hard in the paint, I might slam. We supposed to be bros, we supposed to be fam, but you on the internet talking greasy like spam. Keep talking smart and we gon' clown you like Pam. Man, don't mess with the prophets that's out here wearing purple. We in the same mind, you ain't messing with my circle. A bunch of lions with Bibles, we'll let these scriptures hurt you. We jumping hurdles, we got the whole world on our shoulders. Sit back and let that purple rain. Don't kick against the bricks, don't try to come against the grain. Ain't nothing I can say to them. I'm about to go and pray for him. God.
We them dudes all purple, all gold. Unbelievers complain, y'all hurtful, y'all cold. I'm looking at your journal, then I'm looking at your members. Every year, same people, y'all circle look old. Y'all turtles move slow, being with the feelings. Yeah, you ain't growing, you hit your spiritual ceiling. Y'all be hiding sins, not us, we revealing. Yeah, our nation's sick, and our people need that healing. But y'all ain't got the medicine. Actions don't show, y'all late, call them Letterman. Get it? Late show, David Letterman. Yeah, I'm at the gates, I see David, they like, let him in. All this purple everywhere, yeah, we stay ahead of him. Hating on the bishops, man, you fools stay sweating him. Why y'all steady hating? You supposed to be our brethren. Galatians 5:9, get rid of all that leavening. I bet you like your hair, you look comfortable. When them chariots come, I'm trying to be punctual. Yeah, you lacking wisdom, so your breakdown dysfunctional. Y'all be playing kid games, go and grab a Lunchable. Haha, shame on you. You can't grow, so I'ma put the blame on you. You sound stupid, so now this purple rain's on you. Better repent, or he gon' put them flames on you. Burn up.
Because we what? Just love. And that's what these brothers don't have. They don't have the love for the brethren.
For you to go on YouTube and speak evil of any man, you understand? That's hatred. And without proof, without talking to that man without proof, that's hatred.
We them Bible beating prophets in that purple and gold. In them scriptures we on fire, y'all just mad cause y'all cold. Shut up. Every time we make a move, y'all complaining. Y'all shooting shots about the purple, now that purple is raining. Get them. It was written, y'all ain't spitting nothing new. They was hating on Messiah, now they hating on us too. They be waiting on us too, trying to see what we gonna do. We got 100,000 views, y'all just mad cause y'all got 2. Do the work, jerk, busybody. Over here we united and y'all ain't hurting anybody. I don't even know why y'all keep trying on. Know why y'all keep coming, tell your wife to wash your garment. Y'all be teaching, looking bumping. We the Israelites, brother, we got work to do. How you find the time to hate another brother's work he do? That's what some old jerk would do. We don't play them hating games. Y'all just over mad cause y'all keep seeing all this purple rain. IUIC is growing, every year getting bigger. Won't let our sisters be hoes, won't let our brothers be niggas. We not the type of camp to sit around and talk about others. Y'all can hate your life away, but we got love for our brothers. Y'all brothers talking about colors. Are you serious, cuz? We the flipping sons of God, not the Crips and the Bloods. Y'all must be sipping the suds. I think y'all feeling the buzz. I could've swore I heard them hating, but that ain't what it was. It couldn't be. Maybe they just trying to get some fame. Maybe they just hoping we might justify their name. They call us Purple Rain cause we'll be reigning over nations. Revelations 13:10. Brothers, please have patience.
All right, shalom, shalom. PhoenixKnightV2 here. All right, we're going to expose these holidays. I don't care if it's Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving. All this shit's getting exposed. What's up, Eric? Shalom, shalom. What's up? Yeah, we're going to expose these holidays. I don't care if Christians get offended. Now, somebody said I mentioned about certain somebody. Well, let's see, because Christianity is a lie. If you're anticipating Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, and New Year's on springtime, not December, Valentine's, whatever, you're anticipating in satanic paganism. There's no Bible scripture says celebrate Thanksgiving and celebrate Christmas. There's no Bible saying celebrate Halloween and none of this shit. So basically, y'all live in a lie. You're not living truth. You live in a lie. You live in a motherfucking lie. You live in a lie. You don't live in the truth. You live in a lie. Don't follow the ways of the heathen. Don't follow the ways of the heathen. But hey, Christianity's delusional. Hey, they're delusional. You know what I'm saying? They so damn delusional. They can't tell the truth from a lie. They can't even tell the difference. They can't tell the difference. What is a lie in front of their face about these pagan holidays? They think it's okay to celebrate. There's no Bible mentioning to celebrate. None. Nada. So you follow traditions of man. But yeah. Okay, let's see. Nope. Exactly. Shalom, shalom, Motrice. All right, we're going to go and expose holiday number 1. Hold on. All right, I'm back. All right, we're going to expose Christmas first. We're going to go down to each one. Christmas. Let's go.
Have you ever stopped to question the origin of Christmas traditions? Every December, millions of people across the globe celebrate Christmas, a festival adorned with twinkling lights, decorated trees, and shiny ornaments. It's a time of joy and togetherness, a celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, or so we've been led to believe. But what if I told you that the roots of these traditions are not as holy as you might think? What if they were not born in Bethlehem, but are instead deeply rooted in ancient pagan rituals, borrowed, adapted, and repackaged by early Christians? Intrigued? Shocked, perhaps? This journey is not for the faint-hearted. Let's take a closer look into the controversial origins of our beloved Christmas traditions, unearthing the paradoxes and ironies hidden beneath the festive cheer. Prepare to have your beliefs challenged. To fully grasp this topic, we first need to understand what paganism is. Paganism, a term first used in the 4th century by early Christianity, was initially intended to ridicule non-believers of monotheism. The term has since evolved and is now used to denote a variety of pre-Christian, nature-oriented religious traditions. Paganism encompasses a rich tapestry of beliefs and practices, often tied to the cycles of nature and the reverence of the natural world. It's not a single unified religion, but rather an umbrella term for many spiritual paths that are rooted in indigenous, earth-based expressions of faith. These faith expressions are as diverse as the cultures from which they originate. From the Norse pantheon of gods like Odin and Thor, worshipped by the Vikings, to the Roman deities like Jupiter and Mars, each culture had its unique pantheon and practices. Paganism differs significantly from monotheistic religions like Christianity. While Christianity is centered around the worship of one god, pagan traditions often venerate a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each with their unique domains and responsibilities. Pagan rituals and practices were often directly linked to the natural world. The changing of the seasons, the cycles of the moon, and the rhythm of the earth were all deeply significant. These natural cycles were seen as expressions of the divine, and were often marked with rituals and celebrations. Paganism also places a high value on the direct, personal experience of the divine, often through meditation, ritual, and nature communion. It's a spirituality that encourages individual exploration and interpretation, which is another stark contrast to the prescriptive doctrines of monotheistic religions. Another key aspect of paganism is its reverence for the feminine divine, often symbolized by a goddess. This is in contrast to the predominantly masculine depiction of the divine in Christianity. So when we talk about the pagan roots of Christmas traditions, we're exploring how these earth-based polytheistic traditions have influenced and shaped the practices of a monotheistic holiday. With this understanding of paganism, we can now delve deeper into the origins of Christmas traditions. The roots of many Christmas traditions can be traced back to pagan cultures. Let's journey back in time when winter was a season of dread for ancient people. The sun, their source of warmth and life, was fading away, leading them to the cold grasp of winter. To combat this, they celebrated the winter solstice, the shortest day and longest night of the year, as a symbol of the sun's rebirth. One of these celebrations was the Festival of Brumalia, a month-long feast leading up to the winter solstice. It was a time of indulgence and merriment, dedicated to the Roman god Saturn. Now imagine this. The climax of this festival fell on December 25th, the day we now know as Christmas. This date was also considered the birthday of the unconquerable sun, a concept worshipped by many cultures. The sun was seen as a powerful, life-giving entity, a symbol of hope and rebirth. It's no coincidence that one of the epithets of Jesus is the Son of Justice. In the 4th century, Pope Julius I made a decision that would forever intertwine Christianity and these pagan traditions. He declared December 25th as the official celebration of Jesus' birth. But why this date? The Bible doesn't specify when Jesus was born, and some theories suggest dates like January 6th, April 17th, March 28th, and even September 11th. Pope Julius I, in an effort to Christianize these pagan traditions, chose a date that coincided with these existing festivals. It was a strategic move designed to ease the transition of pagans into Christianity by aligning the celebration of Jesus' birth with their own long-held traditions. But what are the implications of this decision? For one, it suggests a level of syncretism or blending of religious beliefs that challenges the monotheistic nature of Christianity. By adopting pagan traditions, the early church was, in a way, acknowledging the power and significance of these other gods. Furthermore, the Pope's decision could be seen as a form of cultural appropriation, taking the traditions of one culture and repackaging them under a different guise. This raises questions about the originality of Christian practices. If they borrowed these traditions from pagans, could the same be said about the text of the Bible? Could it too be borrowed from other ancient cultures? Some may argue that the choice of December 25th was simply a practical decision, a way to convert pagans to Christianity. But does the end justify the means? by aligning the celebration of Jesus' birth with pagan festivals, did the Church unintentionally dilute the significance of Jesus' birth, reducing it to just another winter solstice celebration? And what about the Roman Pope's role in this decision? The Romans were known for their polytheistic beliefs, worshipping a multitude of gods and goddesses. By choosing to celebrate Jesus' birthday on the climax of Brumalia, was the Pope subtly perpetuating these polytheistic traditions under the guise of Christianity? The date of Jesus' birth is not the only aspect of Christmas with pagan origins. As we will explore in a few minutes, many modern Christmas traditions, from kissing under the mistletoe to decorating with holly, have their roots in pagan cultures. So, as we deck the halls and sing carols this Christmas, let's remember the rich tapestry of history that has shaped this holiday. It's a reminder that our traditions are not born in isolation, but are a product of centuries of cultural exchange and evolution. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's a call to reevaluate our understanding of Christmas, to see it not just as a Christian holiday, but as a celebration of humanity's enduring hope for light, life, and rebirth. Many of our beloved Christmas traditions have their roots in pagan practices. Let's start with one of the most iconic Christmas traditions, kissing under the mistletoe. This tradition hails from the ancient Druids, who held the mistletoe in high regard. To them, it symbolized vivacity and fertility, as it remained green even in the harshest of winters. During their winter solstice celebrations, the Druids would hang mistletoe branches to ward off evil spirits. But the romantic connotation of the mistletoe comes from Norse mythology. Frigga, the goddess of love and beauty, declared the mistletoe a symbol of love after her son Balder was resurrected from the dead. From then on, it was customary to kiss under the mistletoe as a sign of love and lasting friendship. Another tradition we've come to associate with the festive season is hanging ornaments on a Christmas tree. This practice can be traced back to the Roman festival of Saturnalia, held in honor of the god Saturn. During this festival, Romans would adorn their homes and temples with decorative ornaments. These ornaments, called oscilla, often bore the image of a god or goddess and were believed to bring good fortune. In this context, it's interesting to note that we still hang ornaments, albeit with different representations, on our Christmas trees.
You think you know David's story.
The tradition of decorating with holly is another practice with pagan origins. The Druids, Celts, and Romans used holly in their winter solstice celebrations. The Druids and Celts believed that holly warded off evil spirits and brought good luck. The Romans, on the other hand, associated holly with their sun god Saturn and would gift holly wreaths during Saturnalia. The Christian adoption of this practice is an example of how the early church incorporated pagan symbols to ease the transition to Christianity. Now, let's talk about jolly old Saint Nick, better known as Santa Claus. The figure of Santa Claus is a fusion of various figures and legends, including the Christian Saint Nicholas, the English Father Christmas, and the Dutch Sinterklaas. But one of the key influences on the modern image of Santa Claus is the Norse god Odin. During the Yule, a pagan winter festival, children would fill their boots with straw and carrots for Odin's eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. In return, Odin would leave gifts or candy, a practice that is strikingly similar to our modern tradition of hanging stockings for Santa Claus to fill. This isn't the only Yule tradition that has found its way into modern Christmas celebrations. Wassailing, a practice of visiting houses and singing in exchange for food and drink, is reminiscent of today's caroling. However, the origins of wassailing are far from the wholesome tradition we know today. Wassailers, often rowdy and intoxicated, were known to kick down doors, threaten to defile women, and often resorted to violence to get their hands on the best food and drinks. A similar tradition existed in Finland, where people worshipped Beiwe, the goddess of the sun, fertility, and sanity. They built a sleigh made of reindeer bones for Beiwe to ride on her journey across the sky. The white reindeer that pulled Beiwe's sleigh is uncannily reminiscent of Santa's reindeer. The Germanic peoples also had their own Yule traditions, which included decorating trees for Odin. trees held a sacred significance for the Vikings and Saxons who often worshipped in groves of trees. The triangular shape of the evergreen trees symbolized the Holy Trinity in Viking and Saxon cultures, a symbolism that could have been adopted by the Christian faith. The adoption of these pagan traditions by the Christian Church wasn't always smooth. There were times when Christmas was banned due to its pagan influences. However, these traditions have survived and continue to be celebrated, albeit with new meanings and contexts. The pagan roots of these traditions are undeniable. The incorporation of pagan traditions into a Christian holiday has far-reaching implications. The Christian faith, centered around the worship of one God, seems to have adopted practices from pagan cultures that worshipped multiple deities. The irony here is palpable. We're looking at a faith that has been built on the rejection of polytheism, yet it has wholeheartedly embraced traditions that stem from that very belief system. Consider the act of kissing under the mistletoe. This seemingly innocent tradition has its roots in pagan rituals that involved sexual acts and symbolism. It's a stark contrast to the Christian faith's teachings on chastity and modesty. The same goes for the tradition of hanging ornaments. Pagan Romans used to hang ornaments to honor their gods. By adopting this tradition, are Christians inadvertently paying homage to these ancient deities? Then there's the decoration with holly. This tradition stems from the pagan practice of decorating their homes with evergreen plants during the winter solstice to ward off evil spirits and celebrate the return of the sun. In Christianity, the holly is often associated with the crown of thorns worn by Jesus. Yet its origins are steeped in a belief system that Christianity fundamentally rejects. Let's not forget about Santa Claus, the jolly old man who's become synonymous with Christmas. His origins can be traced back to Odin, the Norse god, and Saint Nicholas, who was the patron saint of children and prostitutes. The modern image of Santa Claus is far removed from these figures. But the fact remains, the character we've come to associate with Christian festivities has roots in pagan beliefs and practices. Now let's think about the implications of borrowing traditions from paganism on the Christian faith. It raises questions about the originality and authenticity of the Christian practices. If these traditions...
Oh, we only go even further because Chris is also involved with Nimrod. Nimrod, the sun god. Yeah. All right, we're going to go and expose the next one. We're going to expose Thanksgiving and Halloween, then Easter. We're just going to go down the list. We're going to expose it. Not going to expose all of them, but I'm going to expose a lot of holidays that people are just so attached to. Yeah, I'm going to expose every holiday. If they get triggered by it, that's not my problem. No. All right, we're going to expose the origins of Thanksgiving because obviously a lot of people don't know the origins of that. So let's go and expose the origins of Thanksgiving. Let's go. Because a lot of people don't know the truth about that at all. They don't. So we're going to expose Thanksgiving now. We're going to expose the origins. The real truth, the lie. The real lie, what happened. Actually, hold on. Then we're gonna go to Halloween, etc. That's how we're gonna do it. All right. It's about time people know the truth about Thanksgiving, the origins, the paganness of Thanksgiving, because a lot of people don't know the real truth. So we're gonna go to that too. So here we go. Hope y'all ready for Thanksgiving to be exposed now, because we already did Christmas. Now we're going to expose Thanksgiving. We're going to expose a lot of these holidays. We're going to expose them. So people get triggered, they get triggered. So it is what it is. Let's go.
There is an image etched into the soul of a nation, a long table laden with the bounty of a new world, stern men in black hats and buckled shoes, breaking bread with noble savages in feather and leather. It is a moment of impossible harmony, a single perfect scene of peace and gratitude from which a country was born. This is the story of the first Thanksgiving. It is the story we tell our children, the story we tell ourselves. And it is a lie. A beautiful, necessary, and powerful lie, crafted not in the 17th century, but in the crucible of a nation tearing itself apart. So if the bedrock myth is a fiction, what is the truth it conceals? What ancient human impulse is so powerful that we would invent a memory for it? We will pull on that one simple thread, the ritual meal of thanks, and follow it back through time and across continents. Our journey will take us from the fragile desert booths of the Jewish Sukkot and the overflowing joy of India's Pongal to a Korean feast for the dead at Chuseok. We will uncover the sacred power of the yam in Nigeria's New Yam Festival and confront the sacrificed god at the heart of the Celtic Lugnasad. Through them all, we will uncover a hidden code, an unbroken chain of ritual that connects us all, revealing that breaking bread is not just a meal. It is a contract with the forces of life and death. The story we know begins in 1621 in a place called Plymouth, but the act of giving thanks on American soil is a far older and more tangled tale. Long before the Mayflower's shadow fell upon the coast of Massachusetts, other Europeans had already knelt on these shores in gratitude. In 1565, half a century earlier, Spanish colonists in what is now Florida celebrated a massive Thanksgiving and then laid out a meal to which they invited the local Seloy tribe. In 1578, an English explorer named Martin Frobisher held a service of thanks in the icy expanse of Newfoundland. And in Virginia, English settlers at Jamestown gave thanks for their safe arrival in 1607. And again in 1619, a group known as the Berkeley 100 Settlers were bound by their charter to keep the day of their arrival yearly and perpetually holy as a day of thanksgiving to Almighty God. The Pilgrims were not first. They were not even unique. They were simply the ones chosen, 2 centuries later, to be the protagonists of a national epic. To understand what truly happened in 1621, we must first clear the stage of its familiar actors and see the world as it was. The land the English called New Plymouth was to its inhabitants Patuxet, one of 69 autonomous villages in the sophisticated Wampanoag Nation. For 10,000 years, they had lived in a sacred, reciprocal relationship with this land. Their lives were governed by a rhythm of gratitude, a continuous cycle of thanks for the bounty of the earth. They had festivals for the strawberry harvest, for the green corn, and for the cranberry, their most important tribal holiday. These were not one-off events, but integral parts of a world view where one could not keep taking from the earth without giving something back. Their mythology was populated by beings like Moshup, a benevolent giant who created their islands, taught them how to fish for whales, and presided over their destinies. Gratitude was not an event. It was the very fabric of existence. But by 1620, that fabric was torn. Years before the Pilgrims arrived, European explorers and slavers had brought something else to these shores: disease. A great plague swept through the coastal tribes, killing as many as 3/4 of the Wampanoag people. The entire village of Patuxet was wiped out, its fields untended, its homes silent, the bones of its dead left unburied. This is the world the pilgrims found. Not a virgin wilderness, but a graveyard. The 100 or so passengers who arrived on the Mayflower in the winter of 1620 were entrepreneurs and religious refugees, poorly prepared and desperate. They arrived too late to plant, and without enough food. That first winter was a nightmare they called the starving time. Scurvy and disease tore through their ranks. By spring, nearly half of them were dead. They survived in part by robbing Wampanoag graves and stealing stores of corn. Meanwhile, the Wampanoag, under their great sachem, or leader Usamequin, whom the English called Massasoit, faced a crisis of their own. Decimated by the plague, they were now vulnerable to their rivals, the Narragansett tribe, who had been largely spared by the sickness. Usamequin saw in the English newcomers' formidable muskets a potential solution, and so a desperate alliance was forged. It was not born of friendship, but of a mutual strategic need. A Patuxet man named Tisquantum, who had been kidnapped, enslaved in Europe, and learned English before miraculously finding his way home, only to discover his entire village was gone, served as the bridge between these two wounded, wary worlds. He taught the English how to plant the native corn that would save them. The successful harvest of 1621 was cause for celebration, but it was not what we would call a Thanksgiving. The Pilgrims' concept of a Thanksgiving was a solemn religious day of fasting and prayer to God for deliverance from hardship. The 1621 event was something else entirely, a secular English harvest festival known as a harvest home. It was a raucous 3-day affair of feasting, drinking strong barley ale, playing games, and firing off muskets in a show of military strength. We know this from the only 2 primary English accounts of the event, written by Edward Winslow and William Bradford. Winslow's letter is the most detailed. He writes that after the harvest, the governor sent 4 men out hunting for fowl. He then mentions the arrival of Usamequin, with some 90 men, and only about 50 colonists, most of whom were children and teenagers. Of the 20 English women who had made the voyage, only 4 were still alive to prepare this feast. The power dynamic portrayed in our paintings is a complete reversal of the truth. The Wampanoag were not passive, invited guests. Some historians believe their arrival was a calculated political act, a show of force. Others suggest they may have been drawn by the sound of musket fire, arriving to investigate a potential threat. Whatever the cause, they were active participants. Seeing the meager provisions, they went out and returned with 5 deer, which they gifted to the English leaders. The venison they provided was the centerpiece of the feast. They were not guests at an English meal. They were co-hosts of a diplomatic summit. This fragile peace, this moment of coexistence, would not last. Within a single generation, the alliance would shatter, leading to a brutal war that devastated the Wampanoag and ultimately cost them their land and their political independence. This is the ghost at the feast. This is the history that the comforting myth erases. And it is why, since 1970, many Native Americans and their allies have gathered on that same hill in Plymouth, not to celebrate, but to mourn. They call it the National Day of Mourning, a solemn protest to remember the genocide, the stolen land, and the relentless assault on a culture that had its own, far older ways of giving thanks. So how did this complicated, fraught political meeting become the simple, heartwarming holiday we know today? The answer lies not in the 17th century, but in the 19th, and with a single, remarkably persistent woman. Her name was Sarah Josepha Hale. A prominent writer, activist, and the influential editor of the most popular magazine of the era, Godey's Lady's Book, Hale was the author of the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. But her great passion was the creation of a national Thanksgiving holiday. Growing up in New England, she was familiar with the regional tradition. In her 1827 novel, Northwood, she devoted an entire chapter to describing a Thanksgiving feast, effectively inventing the menu we now consider traditional. The roasted turkey as the lordly head of the table, the savory stuffing, the chicken pie, and of course the pumpkin pie in its distinguished niche. For 17 years, Hale campaigned tirelessly. She wrote editorials, published recipes, and sent letters to 5 different presidents, arguing that a national day of thanks could be a unifying force for a country being torn apart by sectional tensions. Her early letters failed, but in 1863, at the height of the Civil War, she wrote to President Abraham Lincoln. Just months after the pivotal and bloody Union victory at Gettysburg, Lincoln was receptive. He saw the political wisdom in Hale's vision. On October 3rd, 1863, Lincoln issued a proclamation written by his Secretary of State William Seward, calling on all Americans to set apart the last Thursday of November as a day of thanksgiving and praise. He urged them to ask God to heal the wounds of the nation. The modern American Thanksgiving was born. It was not a descendant of the 1621 feast, but the deliberate creation of a 19th century media influencer and a president desperate to forge a single, unified national identity from the fires of war. They needed a simple, peaceful origin story. And so, a complicated harvest festival and political summit was remade 2 centuries later into the first Thanksgiving. The story of the American Thanksgiving, then, is a story of a people seeking a home in a new wilderness and creating a ritual to anchor themselves in it. But this is not a new story. It is an echo of a much older one, a tale not of a physical journey across an ocean, but a spiritual journey through a desert. To find its source, we must travel from the forests of New England to the ancient landscapes of the Near East, and to a festival that finds gratitude not in security, but in profound vulnerability. This is the Jewish festival of Sukkot, known as the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths. Sukkot is one of the 3 great pilgrimage festivals of ancient Israel, when the people were commanded to travel to the temple in Jerusalem. It begins 5 days after the solemn fast of Yom Kippur. And like the American holiday, it has a dual nature. It is Chag HaYasif, the festival of ingathering, a joyous celebration of the autumn fruit harvest. But it is also Chag HaSukkot, the festival of booths, a historical commemoration of the 40 years the Israelites wandered in the desert after their exodus from slavery in Egypt. The central commandment of the festival is to leave the security of one's home and to dwell in a sukkah. This is a temporary, fragile hut with walls that can be made of any material, but a roof, called schach, that must be made of something that grew from the ground but is no longer attached to it, like loose branches or palm fronds. The covering must be sparse enough to provide shade from the sun, yet allow those inside to see the stars at night. For 7 days, families eat their meals, entertain guests, and sometimes even sleep in these vulnerable structures. It is a ritual of deliberate remembrance, a physical act that forces the participant to connect the abundance of the current harvest with the precarity of their ancestors' past. It is a profound theological statement that all security is temporary and all bounty as a gift from a protective, divine hand. Within this fragile dwelling, another ritual unfolds, one that binds the natural world to the human community. This is the waving of the Arba Minim, the 4 species. A lulav, which is a bouquet made from a palm frond, 2 willow branches, and 3 myrtle branches, is held in one hand. In the other is the etrog, a fragrant lemon-like citron. The symbolism of these 4 plants is a deep well of poetry and meaning. In one interpretation, they represent the human body, united in the service of God. The tall, straight palm frond is the spine, the oval myrtle leaves are the eyes, the willow leaves are the lips, and the heart-shaped etrog is the heart. Another, more profound interpretation sees the 4 species as a blueprint for the community itself. The etrog, which has both a beautiful fragrance and a good taste, represents the person who possesses both Torah wisdom and good deeds. The palm frond, which comes from the date palm and has taste but no fragrance, represents the person who has wisdom but lacks good deeds. The myrtle, which has a lovely scent but no taste, is the person of action, full of good deeds but lacking in deep study. And finally,
well, let me stop this for a minute. Thanksgiving is not based on giving thanks. No, it's the slaughter and the slavery of the Indians. But we're going to go to the origins of Halloween. Then we'll go to the origins of what? To the other ones. Because a lot of people don't pay attention to this stuff. They think it's all normal to celebrate, when actually it's not. Doesn't matter what it is. So, pagan origins. We're about to go to another one. We're going to go to another one. And I think everybody should be familiar with this one. Everybody should be familiar with this one. Everybody should be familiar with this. All right. We're going to expose another holiday. Hold on. Expose these holidays. So hold on. Check this out.
Picture this. It's Christmas morning. The smell of cinnamon and pine fills the air. Colorful lights twinkle on a beautifully decorated tree. Children unwrap presents beneath its branches, their faces glowing with joy. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? But what if I told you that this same tree was once surrounded by animal sacrifices? That the jolly man in red has a demonic companion who drags children to hell? That the hearts on your Valentine's cards represent fertility rituals involving blood-soaked animal hides and public whippings? Welcome to the dark history of holiday traditions. I'm taking you on a journey through time to uncover the sinister, bizarre, and often terrifying origins of the holidays we celebrate today. From ancient Celtic priests burning animals alive, to Roman festivals where naked men ran through the streets whipping women for fertility, to Babylonian kings being ritually humiliated to appease angry gods. The holidays you know and love. They're built on a foundation of blood, sacrifice, and supernatural terror. So grab your hot chocolate, turn off the lights, and prepare to never look at your Christmas tree the same way again. Let's start with the big one, Christmas. Today, December 25th, is a day of peace, goodwill, and celebration. We decorate evergreen trees with ornaments and lights. We hang stockings by the fireplace. We exchange gifts. Santa Claus brings presents to good children while they sleep. It's a holiday about light, love, and the birth of hope into the world. But strip away 2,000 years of Christian overlay, and you'll find something much darker lurking beneath. Long before Christianity reached Northern Europe, the winter solstice was a time of dread. The sun was dying. Each day grew shorter, colder, darker. Ancient peoples believed that without intervention, the sun might never return. Winter could last forever. And so they made bargains with their gods. The ancient Celts and Germanic tribes celebrated Yule, a 12-day festival marking the winter solstice. In the darkest, coldest nights of the year, they lit massive bonfires, not for warmth or celebration, but for survival. These fires were meant to give strength to the dying sun, to coax it back to life. But fire alone wasn't enough. They needed blood. Animals, particularly pigs and goats, were sacrificed to the gods. Their blood was sprinkled on sacred trees in the forest. Their bones were thrown into a shared fire, a ritual we might recognize today as the origin of the bonfire. In Scandinavia, the Sami people believed in Bewe, the sun goddess who rode a sleigh made of reindeer bones and was pulled by white reindeer. Sound familiar? This imagery of a winter figure flying through the sky in a reindeer-pulled sleigh predates Santa Claus by thousands of years. But the most disturbing element? The evidence of human sacrifice. While scholars debate the extent of the practice, archaeological evidence from Celtic and Germanic sites suggests that during particularly harsh winters or times of crisis, human sacrifices may have been offered to ensure the sun's return. The bog bodies, found throughout northern Europe, preserved corpses showing signs of ritual killing, tell a grim story of desperate times requiring desperate measures. Now, about that Christmas tree standing in your living room. The practice of decorating evergreen trees has its roots in pagan tree worship. Evergreens were sacred because they defied death, remaining green when all other plants died in winter. They were seen as homes for forest spirits and nature gods. The ancient Romans decorated their homes with evergreen branches during Saturnalia, their week-long winter festival. The Celts and Germanic peoples venerated sacred groves, where particular trees were believed to house powerful spirits. Animal sacrifices weren't just made anywhere. They were made at the base of these sacred trees. Blood was poured onto roots. Entrails were hung from branches as offerings. The tree became an altar, soaked in death, even as it symbolized eternal life. When Christianity spread through Europe, missionaries were faced with a problem. These tree-worshipping practices were deeply ingrained in the culture. So rather than eliminate them entirely, they baptized them. The pagan tree became the Christmas tree. The blood offerings became decorative ornaments. The supernatural spirits became angels. The modern Christmas tree, with its twinkling lights and wrapped gifts beneath, is the domesticated descendant of an altar of sacrifice. But here's where things get truly dark. While children today wait eagerly for Santa Claus to bring presents in alpine regions of Europe, they once trembled in fear of his companion, Krampus. Krampus is a horned, demonic figure, half goat, half demon, covered in dark fur, with fangs, cloven hooves, and a long, pointed tongue. While St. Nicholas rewarded good children, Krampus dealt with the bad ones, and his methods were, let's say, more direct than a lump of coal. According to tradition, Krampus would arrive on Krampusnacht, December 5th, the night before St. Nicholas Day. He would carry chains and bells, making his presence known with a terrifying sound. When he found a misbehaving child, he had several options. He might beat them with birch branches until they bled. He might capture them in his sack and carry them away. He might drag them to his lair or straight to hell. The most disturbing part? This wasn't just a story to scare children. In many communities, men would dress as Krampus and run through the streets, chasing screaming children and adults alike. The tradition continues today in parts of Austria, Germany, and other alpine regions, where elaborately costumed Krampus performers create an atmosphere of controlled terror. Krampus represents something that modern Christmas has sanitized away: the idea that winter was a time of judgment. Behavior had consequences. The darkness held actual danger, and no amount of good cheer could protect you if you'd been deemed unworthy. Meanwhile, in ancient Rome, the winter solstice brought Saturnalia, a festival so wild, so chaotic, so completely opposite to our modern Christmas that it's almost shocking they're related at all. Saturnalia ran from December 17th to December 24th. Sound familiar? During this week, normal social order was completely inverted. Slaves became masters. Masters served slaves. Gambling was legal. Public drunkenness was encouraged. People wore their clothes backwards and cross-dressed. The usual rules didn't apply. The festival began with animal sacrifices to Saturn, the god of agriculture and time. After the blood rituals came the feasting. Massive, elaborate meals with wine flowing freely. Then came the gambling, the games, the gift-giving, and yes, the sexual license. Roman sources describe Saturnalia as a time of madness and license. The poet Catullus called it the best of days. Others described it as controlled chaos, a release valve for a rigidly hierarchical society. When Christianity became the official religion of Rome, church authorities were faced with a dilemma. Saturnalia was massively popular. You couldn't just ban it. So instead, they absorbed it. December 25th was chosen as Christ's birthday, not because there's any evidence Jesus was born then, but because it was convenient. It overlapped with existing pagan celebrations, making the transition easier for new converts. The gift-giving from Saturnalia, the feasting. Saturnalia, the idea of a special time where normal rules don't apply. Saturnalia, our Christmas is literally built on the bones of a pagan orgy. October 31st, Halloween. Today, it's one of the most fun holidays of the year. Kids dress up as superheroes and princesses. We carve silly faces into pumpkins. We hand out candy and watch horror movies. It's spooky, sure, but in a safe, commercialized way. The scariest thing about modern Halloween might be the amount of sugar our kids consume. But this holiday, perhaps more than any other, has retained an echo of its truly terrifying origins, because Halloween comes from Samhain. And Samhain was the night when the boundary between the living and the dead dissolved. For the ancient Celts of Ireland, Scotland, and other parts of Northern Europe, Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, the darker half of the year. It fell on October 31st, and it was the most important and most dangerous night of the year. The Celts believed that on Samhain, the veil between our world and the other world became thin, so thin that spirits, fairies, and darker entities could cross over. The dead would return to visit their homes, but not all returning spirits were friendly. Samhain was mandatory. Communities were required to participate or face divine punishment, usually illness or death. The festival lasted 3 days and 3 nights, and failure to attend was considered an offense to the gods themselves. So what happened during Samhain? First, all fires in the community were extinguished. Total darkness. Then, druids, the Celtic priests, would light massive sacred bonfires using a wooden wheel to create friction and spark flames. The wheel represented the sun, and the ritual was meant to help bring it back from its winter journey. But the fires needed fuel, and not just wood. Animals, primarily cattle, were sacrificed and burned. Historical accounts describe how the druids would smear blood on the foreheads of participants. The blood was then wiped away with wool soaked in milk, while participants laughed. A ritual whose meaning has been lost to time, but whose imagery remains disturbing. Archaeological evidence strongly suggests that human sacrifices occurred as well. Bodies have been found at ancient Samhain sites showing signs of ritual killing. The victims were likely criminals, slaves, or prisoners of war, people deemed expendable by society. They were offered to the gods to ensure protection through the dark winter months. But what about the living? How did ordinary people protect themselves when spirits walked the earth? They disguised themselves. The Celtic practice of wearing costumes on Samhain wasn't for fun, it was for survival. People would dress in animal skins and heads, transforming themselves into something other than human. The logic was simple. If evil spirits couldn't recognize you as human, they couldn't harm you. Others went further, dressing as demons and monsters themselves. If you looked scary enough, maybe the real monsters would leave you alone, or better yet, mistake you for one of their own. They would also mark their doors with animal blood, similar to the Passover tradition in Jewish culture. The blood was a ward, a sign saying, "Death has already visited here, move along." Children were dressed as demons for protection. Houses were marked with blood. And anyone foolish enough to be caught outside after dark without a disguise, they were taking their life into their own hands. This is the true origin of Halloween costumes. This wasn't about celebration, it was survival, born from a very real fear of the supernatural. And those jack-o'-lanterns lighting your porch, originally, they were carved from turnips, not pumpkins. The practice comes from an Irish legend about Stingy Jack, a man so wicked that when he died, neither heaven nor hell would take him. Condemned to wander the earth forever, Jack carved out a turnip and placed a coal from hell inside it to light his way through eternal darkness. The Irish began carving turnips with grotesque faces and placing candles inside them. These weren't decorations, they were protective talismans. The carved faces would frighten away evil spirits, while the light inside would guide lost souls away from your home. When Irish immigrants came to America during the 19th century, they discovered pumpkins, much larger and easier to carve than turnips. The tradition adapted, and the jack-o'-lantern became the Halloween staple we know today. But understanding its origin adds a different dimension, doesn't it? That cute carved pumpkin on your porch is meant to be a barrier between your home and wandering spirits. It's not welcoming, it's warning. Stay away, we're protected here. By the 9th century, as Christianity spread through Celtic lands, church authorities faced the same problem they'd had with winter solstice festivals. Samhain was too deeply rooted to eliminate, so they absorbed it. Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, also called All Hallows' Day, a time to honor Christian martyrs and saints. The night before, October 31st, became All Hallows' Eve. Eventually, All Hallows' Eve was shortened to Halloween, and finally to Halloween. The Christian holiday kept many of Samhain's external elements, the focus on death and the supernatural, the idea of honoring the dead, even some of the festival activities. But the meaning was reframed. Instead of fearing spirits and making blood sacrifices, Christians would pray for souls in purgatory and celebrate those who'd achieved sainthood. Yet the older, darker traditions never completely disappeared. They went underground, preserved in folk customs and superstitions. The belief that Halloween night was spiritually dangerous persisted for centuries. Even today, despite its commercialization, Halloween retains an edge that other holidays don't have. There's a reason horror movies are associated with this particular date, a reason we decorate with images of death and darkness, a reason the holiday feels transgressive in a way Christmas or Easter don't. Halloween remembers what it used to be, and some part of us remembers too. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The day of love, romance, and overpriced flowers. You probably picture chocolates, heart-shaped cards, romantic dinners. Maybe you think of St. Valentine, a Christian martyr who defied Roman authorities to secretly marry Christian couples. Now let me tell you about Lupercalia. In ancient Rome, mid-February was reserved for Lupercalia, a fertility festival so wild, so violent, and so sexually charged that it makes Saturnalia look tame by comparison. The festival took place at the Lupercal Cave, the legendary site where a she-wolf nursed Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. The celebration began with animal sacrifices. Priests called the Luperci would slaughter a goat representing sexuality and fertility, and a dog representing purification. The Luperci would take off their clothes, completely naked except for strips of goat skin. They would take the bloody knife used for the sacrifice and smear the blood across the foreheads of two young men. The blood would then be wiped away with wool soaked in milk, and the young men were required to laugh. No one knows why. The ritual's exact meaning has been lost to time. After a feast, the real ceremony began. The Luperci would cut strips from the freshly sacrificed goat's hide. These strips, called februa, which gives us the word February, were dipped in the sacrificial blood. Then, still naked or nearly so, these men would run through the streets of Rome, striking anyone they encountered with these blood-soaked strips of goat skin. But here's the truly disturbing part. Women would actively seek out these strikes. Roman women believed that being struck by the februa would increase their fertility and ease childbirth. So they would line the streets, presenting their hands, or according to some accounts, other parts of their bodies, to be ritually whipped with bloody goat hide by naked priests. This wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated. Mark Antony participated in Lupercalia in 44 BCE while serving as consul. It was a mainstream religious festival witnessed by crowds, considered essential for the health and fertility of Rome. So how did this blood-soaked fertility ritual become the Day of Roses and Chocolates? The transformation took centuries. First, the church tried to ban Lupercalia entirely. By the 5th century, Pope Gelasius I officially forbade Christian participation in the festival. But as with other pagan holidays, the date remained significant. The church associated February 14th with Saint Valentine, though exactly which Saint Valentine is unclear, as there were at least 2 martyrs by that name executed on that date in different years. Valentine became associated with romantic love, not through any historical evidence, but through medieval literature. Geoffrey Chaucer, the medieval English poet, wrote about Valentine's Day as a time when birds choose their mates. This became romanticized in courtly love traditions. By the Middle Ages, Valentine's Day had become associated with romance, love letters, and the exchange of tokens of affection. The blood was gone, the nakedness was gone, the public whippings were gone, but the date remained, and the theme, fertility and love, remained. Your Valentine's Day card, with its red hearts and white lace, those colors come directly from Lupercalia. Red represents the blood of sacrifice. White represents the purifying milk. The very symbols we use today are sanitized versions of ancient fertility magic. Now let's talk about Easter. And here we enter more controversial territory. Unlike Christmas and Halloween, where the pagan connections are well documented, Easter's pre-Christian roots are murkier and hotly debated by scholars. The name Easter likely comes from Eostre, or Ostara, a Germanic goddess of spring and dawn, mentioned by the monk Bede in the 8th century. According to Bede, the Anglo-Saxons celebrated a festival in her honor during what they called Eosterminath, the month of April. But here's the problem. Bede is our only source. No other ancient texts mention Eostre. No temples have been found dedicated to her. No prayers or hymns survive. Some scholars believe Bede may have invented her or confused a month name with a goddess name. But let's assume Eostre existed. What would her festival have looked like? Based on similar spring festivals in other Indo-European cultures, we can make educated guesses. Spring festivals universally focused on fertility, rebirth, and the return of life after winter's death. They involved lighting bonfires to encourage the sun's strength, sexual rituals to promote fertility in both humans and livestock animal sacrifices to ensure a good growing season, divination practices to predict the year's fortune. The symbols we associate with Easter, eggs and rabbits, are undeniably fertility symbols. Rabbits are famous for their prolific breeding. Eggs represent new life. Both were sacred to various spring goddesses throughout pagan Europe. But here's where the historical record gets interesting. Easter eggs appear in Christian tradition as early as the 2nd century in the Middle East, long before Christianity reached Germanic territories. Christians in Mesopotamia would paint eggs red to symbolize Christ's blood and give them as gifts. So did Christianity adopt pagan egg traditions? Or did the tradition develop independently in Christian communities and later merge with similar pagan practices? Historians genuinely don't know. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, a blend of Christian symbolism with local spring customs, all wrapped around the historical event of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection during Passover season. What we can say with certainty: spring festivals celebrating fertility, renewal, and the triumph of light over darkness existed across pagan Europe. When Christianity arrived, these festivals didn't disappear. They were reinterpreted. The resurrection of Christ fit naturally into existing narratives about life-conquering death, making the transition easier for converts. The pagan elements may be less clear-cut than with other holidays, but they're there, woven into the fabric of how we celebrate. December 31st at midnight. Fireworks explode, champagne flows, strangers kiss. We count down the final seconds of the old year and celebrate the arrival of the new. It's a party, a chance to start fresh. New year, new you. But this celebration, this need to mark the turning of the cosmic wheel, is literally as old as civilization itself. And in its original form, it wasn't a party. It was a terror. The first recorded New Year's celebration comes from Babylon, around 2000 BCE. The festival was called Akitu, and it lasted 12 days during the first month of the Babylonian calendar, roughly March, April, during the spring equinox. Akitu wasn't just a celebration, it was a ritual to renew the cosmic order, to reset the relationship between gods, kings, and people for another year. Without it, chaos would reign. The festival involved elaborate ceremonies at the temple of Marduk, the supreme god. But the most fascinating and disturbing aspect was what happened to the king. On the 5th day of Akitu, the king of Babylon would be brought to the temple. He would be stripped of his crown, scepter, and royal robes, all symbols of his power. The high priest would then slap the king hard across the face and drag him by his ears before the statue of Marduk. The king had to swear he had ruled justly. He had to promise he had not sinned against the god, and he had to cry. The king's tears were essential. If he cried, it meant Marduk was satisfied and would extend his reign for another year. If he didn't cry, it was a bad sign. The slapping and ear-dragging would continue until tears appeared. This ritual humiliation of the most powerful person in the kingdom served multiple purposes. It reminded everyone, including the king, that human power was temporary and conditional. It demonstrated that even kings were subject to divine judgment. And it allowed society to symbolically start fresh, with sins confessed and order restored. When the Romans adopted January 1st as their new year, thanks to Julius Caesar's calendar reform in 46 BCE, they associated the day with Janus, the two-faced god, who could look simultaneously into the past and future. Romans would make sacrifices to Janus, offering him the blood of animals in hopes of gaining good fortune for the year ahead. They believed this day set the tone for the entire year to come, so they were careful to avoid arguments, to be generous with gifts, and to work at least a little. Idleness on New Year's Day would mean a lazy year ahead. The sacrifices to Janus were meant to secure his favor at this liminal moment, this threshold between years. Blood would be spilled, prayers would be offered, the future would be purchased with the death of animals. This pattern repeats across cultures. The Chinese New Year, one of the world's oldest continuously celebrated holidays, involves firecrackers to scare away demons and offerings to ancestors. The Nowruz celebration in Persia combined feasting with religious sacrifices. The Maya New Year involved the sacrifice of dogs thrown from pyramid temples, Every culture that developed a calendar created rituals to mark its turning. And those rituals almost always involved sacrifice, purification, and the renewal of cosmic order through divine appeasement. Our modern New Year's celebrations, with their resolutions, fresh starts, and hopeful toasts, are the sanitized descendants of these ancient rites. We've kept the symbolism of renewal and new beginnings. We've just removed the blood. So what's the pattern? What connects all these holidays? Look at the timing. Christmas falls at the winter solstice, the darkest point of the year. Halloween marks the beginning of winter, the death of the growing season. Valentine's Day and Easter celebrate spring, the return of life and fertility. New Year's marks a cosmic reset, the beginning of a new cycle. These weren't arbitrary dates. Ancient peoples chose the most liminal, most dangerous, most uncertain moments in the year to perform their most important rituals, and they all involved similar elements. Blood, sacrifice was universal. Whether animal or human, life had to be given to ensure life would continue. Every festival involved flames, bonfires, candles, burning offerings. Fire represented the sun, life, purification, and protection. Reversal. Normal social order was suspended. Slaves became masters. The dead walked among the living. Kings were humiliated. The barrier between worlds dissolved. Fear. These weren't comfortable celebrations. They were responses to genuine terror. Terror of darkness, death, winter, chaos, and divine anger. Community participation was mandatory. These weren't personal choices. Society survived by acting collectively, by performing the rituals together. Different cultures, separated by thousands of miles and centuries, developed remarkably similar traditions. The Celtic Samhain and the Mexican Dia de los Muertos both honor the dead at the same time of year. Germanic Yule and Roman Saturnalia both celebrated the winter solstice with evergreen decorations and gift-giving. Babylonian Akitu and Chinese New Year both involved ritual humiliation and demon warding. These parallels suggest something deeper than cultural borrowing. They suggest a shared human need to ritualize our fear of the unknown, to create meaning from chaos, to negotiate with forces beyond our control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We haven't actually moved that far beyond our ancestors. We've sanitized the rituals, removed the blood, replaced sacrifice with shopping, turned fear into family-friendly fun. But we still mark these same dates. We still feel the need to celebrate, to gather, to perform rituals that connect us to something larger than ourselves. Modern Christmas still happens at the winter solstice. We still bring evergreens into our homes. We still exchange gifts. We've just forgotten why we started doing these things. Halloween has become a candy-coated commercial holiday, but we still dress our children in costumes, still light jack-o'-lanterns, still embrace imagery of death and darkness on this one night of the year. We need these holidays. We need the ritual marking of time's passage. We need the excuse to gather, to feast, to step outside normal life for a moment. But perhaps we also need the darkness. Perhaps we need to be reminded, even if only symbolically, even if only in the back of our minds, that life is fragile, that winter comes, that death is real, that chaos lurks at the edges of our ordered world. The holidays we celebrate today are compromises between our ancestors' terror and our modern comfort. We've kept just enough darkness to make them feel meaningful, while removing enough to make them safe. But on some level, we remember. The Christmas tree whispers of blood-soaked altars. The jack-o'-lantern guards against spirits we pretend not to believe in. The Valentine's heart beats with ancient fertility magic. The dark history isn't just history. It's still here, woven into the fabric of how we mark time and meaning. So this year, when you decorate your Christmas tree, remember the sacrifices made at its ancestors' roots. When your children go trick-or-treating, remember they're participating in a protection ritual against malevolent spirits. When you give your Valentine a card, remember the blood-soaked strips of goat hide. When you toast the new year, remember the kings dragged before angry gods, begging for another year of life. Our holidays are beautiful because they contain both light and darkness. Life and death, hope and fear. They remind us that humanity has always faced the darkness and found ways to survive it, even celebrate within it. The dark history of our holiday traditions isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a testament to human resilience, creativity, and the eternal need to find meaning in an uncertain world. So happy holidays. Whatever you're celebrating, wherever these traditions came from, may your winter be warm, may your dead rest peacefully, and may your new year begin without public humiliation.
As a director of finance, I'm managing 15 and 20 contracts a month. With Acrobat AI Assistant, I can summarize long contracts and identify key terms instantly. AI Assistant helps me compare 2 different versions of the same document for key changes. It makes me feel very confident that nothing's missing and everything's accurate. With AI Assistant, we're able to focus on what really matters: growing our business and finding new ways to reach soccer fans.